is the Writer's Almanac for Monday. It's the 1st of March, 2021. It's the birthday of the poet Richard Wilbur, New York City, 1921. Went to Amherst, married his college sweetheart, joined the Army as a cryptographer. But when they found out he'd belonged to leftist organizations in college, he was reassigned to the infantry. He said, "It was quite true that I held leftist views, but then, as now, I had an uncomplicated love of my country, and I was naively amazed to learn that my service record was stamped, suspected of disloyalty." He fought on the front lines, Italy, France, and began writing poems. He said, "There are all kinds of ways to forget how frightened and disoriented you are, but one of the best is to take pencil and paper, which is all you need to be a poet, and which makes it possible to practice poetry in a foxhole." Richard Wilbur said, "As embarrassing as that word is, inspiration, I do think it corresponds to my experience. A poem comes looking for me rather than I hunting after it." It was on this day in 1872, President Ulysses S. Grant signed legislation making Yellowstone this country's first national park. Early explorers had sent back descriptions of geysers and steaming rivers and boiling mud, and people didn't believe them until the government set out an official scouting party in 1871, and they established that Yellowstone is home to one of the world's 30 active super volcanoes responsible for the hot springs and the geysers, including Old Faithful. It's the birthday of the poet Robert Lowell, born Boston, 1917. It's the birthday of Ralph Ellison, Oklahoma City, 1914, the grandson of slaves, inspired by meeting Langston Hughes and Richard Wright to become a writer. He was sitting at a typewriter in a barn on a friend's farm in Vermont, recovering from a bad kidney infection, and he typed the sentence, "I am an invisible man," not knowing what he meant by that, but he wanted to find out who would think of himself as invisible. It took him 7 years to write the book. Invisible Man came out in 1952. Here's a poem for today by Marcus Jackson, entitled Whereabouts, to Nicole. Finished early at the library, I strolled Canal Street to fill empty hours before we'd meet home for dinner. Late winter light sneered, reluctant to leave the streets, bargain tables with T-shirts or imposter purses, jewelry coves where gold necklaces refracted from squares of scarlet felt. All down Mulberry, arched garlands of festival bulbs shined champagne from Italian restaurant stoops. Waiters with handsome accents lured tourists by describing entrees like landscapes. At Ferrara's dessert cafe, the wait bent halfway up the clogged block. I whittled inside, browsed glass cabinets of cookies, yellow-shelled cannolis, cakes displayed on paper placemats that looked like lace. I arrived 40 minutes late. You balanced hand against bedroom door jamb, pulling off your office heels. Once you noticed the bakery box under my arm, your face calmed. My earlier whereabouts evidenced in sweetness we would fork from the same plate. A poem entitled Whereabouts by Marcus Jackson. That's the Writer's Almanac for Monday, the 1st of March, funded by donations from listeners like you, now available on PRX for distribution by your local radio station. Be well, do good work, and keep in touch.